Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Trekyards. He is Commander Cocking.
He's Catton Foley.
And we are here today to talk about monsters. More specifically, the episode named Monsters. Picard Season 2, Episode 7.
Stuart, what do you think of this episode of...
I really enjoyed this one, actually. There was a lot going on, and it was kind of... At first, I was like, what is happening? The whole fairy tale story I didn't need necessarily, but I'm sure it'll pay off at some point. But I gotta say, before I left for Chicago, which was last week, I watched the whole BSG miniseries. And last night I watched 7 episodes of Season 1. So I saw Gaius Baltar, and I'm like, hell yeah.
And isn't that one you'd never finished, Galactica? You just never got around to it?
Yeah, I never finished it. I got like halfway through Season 1, so I'm going through and
that basically means you haven't watched it then, that little.
Exactly.
Exactly,
yeah.
Wow.
I'm really enjoying it this time. So
It's one of the best shows they ever made, so yes.
So seeing him was great. No, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good pace. And at the end there, I was like, ooh, Duquesne, ooh. And he's got video footage of a demon. But then it's like, oh, wait a minute. Is he just an FBI guy? Or is that still like a red herring kind of going on? So I'm getting excited for everything that's going on. We got some reveals. We got some, it was a good, fun episode for me to watch. And I'm looking forward to watching it again for my second watch. Because I'm sure there's stuff that I might have missed. But overall, I'm super stoked. So there you go. How about you?
Yeah, I think it's the best of the 2024 episodes. It had the most full momentum, and it does really feel as if the last two are meant to be one episode that they just couldn't fit into one, so they split into two. There's so much more story in this episode, so much more progression, so much more movement, and it really feels it, and it really benefits from it. Even so much as having two end stings. No, the ball queen somewhere, and then another sting, no, there's two da-da-da moments, which is unusual for this sort of thing. No, I thought it was good. I thought it was, they once again didn't go down the trap of being too much fairy tale, too silly. It balanced that pretty well. Once it moved past it, it didn't go back. And I think it very much relies on the reveal, which I wasn't looking for. So I really liked, and I thought they did a good job. That definitely deepened the episode, and having now since watched parts again for show prep, it's really fun to rewatch and see what the context is meant to be. What is conceptual, what is not. So hold your ears if you don't want the spoiler, because it's quite a big spoiler. But the only other guy in uniform for the past 8 episodes is Picard's dad. Or at least his mental image of Picard's dad, which we did see in both contemporary French attire and then this weird sort of maybe uniform, who knows, it's a brain palace, who knows. But that I thought really deepened it, and it was a nice reveal. I think you can kind of, once he appeared in the real life stuff, you can kind of sense that's probably going to be what it was going to be. But I'm very, very, very pleased the reveal wasn't, yes, he was an abusive father, because that was such an obvious trap to go down. And I think a lot of us were thinking that, because Patrick would say, I'll bring my own life to it, that's what happened in his life. But I thought that the way they, A, twisted him to be a dad, and B, not the abusive father, really saved the tone of the episode and gave it this much more, okay, they've added to the legacy of Star Trek rather than made Picard's family a really horrible story. So
well, I'm intrigued that there's tunnels underneath Chateau Picard.
Yeah, that might that might pay off actually, considering
a lot of them have wine cellars, but those seem more like tunnels and stuff like that. It just seemed very odd. It could have been because of the German occupation of it during World War II as well. Maybe they added those. That was pretty interesting. Yeah, and the fact that the dad wasn't the monster, it was just the mom suffering from mental illness, was a very nice twist. Not that it's a good thing that she's suffering from that, but you know what I mean. Like you said, it's an easy trap to fall down, and I thought that's where they were going when they started the whole thing.
Well, you're meant to, as the fans.
That whole thing of him being trapped down there as a kid, and that's why he was trapped in his mind. I found at first a little distracting and annoying, but as it kind of gets revealed, it's like, okay, this was actually pretty well done. So, yeah, I that story was the least favorite of mine out of the whole thing. But hey,
well, it's funny when we're in the present day stuff. I was wishing for the fake stuff, but then mostly the fake doctor's office stuff. But then I think this payoff is so strong it allows all the setup stuff, because it just gives you something strong. And considering they actively tease the season 3 version of the plot, there's more to come, literally saying there's more, and that'll, I'm assuming, be a season 3 part of the storyline. Otherwise, they're going to cram it in at the very last minute in season 2. So that's why I get the sound like, you know, we've seen his initial breakthrough in therapy, and then there's the next level as well. But it also helped to illustrate that part of the reason he can't form partnerships is because he remembers his family being so dysfunctional, and he remembers a vibe from his own family that has meant he can't form connections in the same way. But by making it be a childhood remembering wrongly, it really helps it be okay rather than something harsh, super dramatic. I'm sure there's, you know, you get a sense that Picard's mum he's gonna let her escape and she's gonna get killed and it's gonna be partially his fault. That's clearly the implication, something darker to cement it why he can't remember it. But for now it's like, okay, I kind of get why, you know, the only relationship he ever saw in his life he thought even subconsciously was bad, and so he can't make that final step with somebody except with Beverly in the alternate future. I get it more. It was well laid out, or better than I thought anyway.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny where he's like, the last thing he said to me was that you're afraid of tight spaces. And I'm like, because I too am a little bit claustrophobic. But he's like, yeah. And the irony is I spend all my life out in the infinite vastness of the galaxy. And I'm like, yeah, inside a ship or a shuttlecraft. You're always confined regardless, right? I thought that was neat. I didn't know that about Picard, that he was claustrophobic a little bit, but
I mean, I don't think he is. Remember, he was trapped.
I don't think he is either.
He's trapped in a turbo lift when the ship's imploding with kids, and he's fine with a broken leg. So he really isn't claustrophobic. That's not really a thing. Yeah.
He had to like put on a brave face.
I get that, but he's not claustrophobic. I mean, we're all, like I said, a little bit claustrophobic, but he's not actually claustrophobic because he's been in too many situations where that would be a thing, and he's really not. I think that was not literally claustrophobic. It was more, I can't be locked into one life environment. I need to be out there. That's what he meant. So the Enterprise lets him go out and be. I think it's more symbolic because he's in his own brain. So obviously everything he says has the twinge of what's real, what's not, etc.
The other thing with Talon, the Romulan earpiece.
Not subtle, like, Stuart.
I wrote it down. Another Romulan tech. And then we get the reveal that she's actually is a Romulan, and that once she deactivates the little ear point cloak thing.
Oh, that's a good name. Ear point cloak. That's nice. I like that. Patent pending. Yeah.
Little earring that cloaks the top. I don't know. That she has to look like that for 8 hours, which was kind of fun. But he said an ancestor. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out when he gets back. Because I thought it might be her and somehow, you know, travels through time or whatever. They did address the issue with the Watchers, how usually it's their own species, but sometimes similar species have been assigned. And so thank God they mentioned that, because, yeah, it was generally humans taken off of Earth. I don't know. What did you think about that reveal?
It makes it easy to stomach in general, because otherwise the coincidence of being a human Laris is silly. I didn't think for a second it'd be actually Laris, because based on the Picard time travel rules, there's no way she can be there. No way. It doesn't, you know, unless you obviously use alternate universes, but then again, she's not really Laris. It was nice. It was sort of unnecessary because it brings us into the, well, is he going to start wanting to date this version of not Laris? And it's like, that's a bit creepy. Just because she looks like her, despite not being the same. Although I will actually say one thing. I just remembered that I learned actually that the Laris actress said in an interview or a convention, she said that there's actually a reason she hasn't actually got an Irish accent as a Romulan thing, and I didn't realise this. There's actually a reason they worked out in the story. The actual relocation camp the refugee camp was in Ireland, where she happened to be, so she learned English in Ireland. So that's why she has an Irish accent. It's not an Irish-speaking Romulan, that's how she learned English with Irish, which makes it, I wish they'd said that, because it would have been, there's no issue then. It doesn't sound as silly if she just learned English Irish. That's kind of cool then. So a small detail, but it's like, there's a reason, actual reason, not just because we say.
Sounds like something you'd learn in a book or a comic. Yeah, the
actress just said that I was told about my backstory. But I thought it makes it a bit more weird. When was the Watcher species? When do they take humans? I thought it was thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
But the Romulan people weren't separated that, I thought it was maybe 1,000 or 2,000. It wasn't that long. So why would the Watcher people decide to grab Romulans from the newly formed Romulus, which is also just, they're Vulcans, and then she wouldn't think of herself necessarily as a Romulan. But then if she's then bred on a planet, then she's also, wouldn't she maybe mingle with humans or all the other races they have, which makes it a cornucopia of species, which is lovely. But surely she'd be like 1/100th Romulan after interbreeding with all these other people, and then the tech certainly wouldn't look Romulan because it's not Romulan tech, it's Watcher tech. Because now we know that she was also pulled from Romulan, like, they're not Romulans, but unless they say, well, we'll give her... Ah, now maybe they gave... maybe they gave her tech that she would have used if she went to Romulus, because she was trained to work with Romulus, present-day Romulus tech, and she just happened to say, well, I'm going to keep that tech. I guess that makes sense. Although it's still holographic version, it's still the enhanced Watcher version of that tech, which is more advanced, which sort of defeats the purpose of having it. But it's a bit confusing, but it's a bit, super blatant when the thing is literally just a Romulan ear. I'm like, oh, okay. But they kind of saved it.
The other thing is the Rios and Teresa story. It was actually really good. I like the whole no, I'm from Chile. I only work in outer space. I got a good laugh out of.
I knew it was coming as soon as he started the sentence, and I was very happy with it.
So did I, yeah. And then he takes him aboard the ship, and the kid's like, I want to touch everything. It's like, that's probably not a great idea.
It certainly deepens the will she come with him? Because they deposit he stays or they go with them last week. Because you can't keep showing them stuff without something happening.
Yeah. I thought that storyline was nicely tied up very quick. Or not very tied up, but, it wasn't stretched out too much in this episode. It was very perfect.
It's the D story, and it's to add that human element. Because it's super unimportant, but it's the human condition. And it allows Rios to just flat out and say, yeah, Picard's a father figure that I never had, which makes a lot of sense and retroactively improves season 1, I think. Although you can kind of tell, explains why he's always so loyal to him, etc. So that all was, it was nice, but it was, I'm glad it wasn't focused on. I thought the balance of stories was much better this week. That said, the lack of Borg Queen story was kind of surprising, but clearly they saving up for that to be the big end thing. But also this isn't our reality. I'm not super driven to be like, oh no, they're going to change the future. No, they're not. There aren't butterflies. But they kind of express, yes, she is being assimilated into a Borg Queen, which means it's sort of a different process, and then she has to be stronger to assimilate. It all seemed a little bit odd, but
the endorphins, like helping the nanites, progress faster and stuff. That's kind of interesting.
It was a good build, but minimally done.
I think the next episode is going to focus more on that for sure, and or the Picard getting arrested.
That's true, which was definitely a surprise. And I got to say, that was that Guinan actress's best bit as Guinan, hands down better than her last appearance. Like, didn't quite capture Whoopi, but I'll give her Elorian vibes. Just didn't feel like if you'd said it was an Elorian, yes, definitely not Whoopi Goldberg, but better scene. Much better scene.
Yeah, that whole thing with the genie in the bottle, essentially. I didn't say that as such, but was interesting. And I assume it's because Q's lost his powers, or is having, something's going on with him that he didn't show up, or AQ didn't show up. But yeah, the fact Duquesne showed up, as soon as I saw him, I'm like, okay. And then he's like talking about sci-fi, I'm a sci-fi guy, and then he shows the thing of Picard beaming in. It's like, oh yeah, this is Duquesne. We're going to hear temporal something now. And then just the FBI swarms in. I'm really hoping he's still a temporal agent. If he's not, I'm going to be very disappointed. That's all I can say. He could still be working for them and just using, the FBI as a...
But as we know, with this time travel logic, it shouldn't exist because they've changed time travel logic. Or at least using this version of it. No, I was waiting for him to play coy and then just put a relativity badge, just slide it across the table and say, Picard. And that would be the end. Like, that's how I kind of saw it going. Or at least how I want it to go. Yeah. Or like pulls out the FBI badge and then he like unclips it and underneath the badge is a relativity badge. Too bad. No, and I thought it was, a lot of the new Trek additions to canon are a bit messy, but I did appreciate the Elorian Cold War with Q's. Like, they actually gave us something, so much will meat to that. And I thought it was both restrained enough, but informative enough I liked it. No idea what it means, but it was fun. It was okay. It makes more sense, and it obviously makes the Guinan scene 5,000 times better from TNG. It's like, aha! It's like a Klingon and a human walk in after TOS. It's like, hello. And to fight the Q, though, that Elorian's more Although it kind of get the sense it's more based on tech. They've worked out a way of... It's like in Stargate, you can fight ascended beings even though they are living in a plane of existence, but with technology you can... they're still an energy life form within the universe. So I didn't get the sense that they're magic, because Elorians are not magic, but that they understood the plane in which the Q existed and therefore can counter them in a certain way. So I liked the tone of it. And then, when the bottle comes out, great, fun visual, good stuff. Anything could have happened, right? Absolutely anything. I was either expecting Q's son, Lady Q, so many other things, or just because it would have made more sense a random Q to show up, just anyone, because they can't summon the Q. There's many Qs, so I was waiting for someone else to turn up, and the fact that no Q showed up tells me the continuum itself is at flaw, because it would summon any Q. It would just it's a collect call to the continuum. So that's what this tells me, that there is this bigger galaxy universe spanning issue. So that I really liked, and they didn't have to say that, but clearly implied. I thought that was really nice. Because Garnham was literally this thing has one purpose. It's always worked. So I thought that was actually a really nice addition. I mean, we sensed it. There's something going on. But I thought that was a well-played way of getting into that.
Yeah. What did you think of the Batman cameo?
The Batman cameo.
The bad guy in the painted on the glass with the red eyes is Batman. The bat ears and everything.
It's good. I kind of assumed, and I was kind of really hoping that we're going to kind of... Because when you go dream state, you can do whatever you want. I was kind of hoping that when not Laris went into the mental state, and we heard Lacuse, we heard baddies, I assumed we were going to see some Borg drones. Should have to go through a sample of his greatest hit villains and make it way more menacing, because even though we're seeing young Picard's perspective, it's living through the old Picard's experiences. So I assumed we'd see that, and they would see literally the Borg from First Contact, and it'd be a horror show in that way, rather than these non-alien, non-known creatures. I thought that would have really been super, super amazing, especially as the just tone, I think, would have factored it.
Well, jumping off that, you see the one guy in the suit of armor, the knight, checking the door, and then he turns around and leaves again. Would have been cool if he was wearing a suit of armor but had a Borg implant or a thing on his face with a laser.
Because you would think that the trauma of that would overshadow other preconceived feelings. Because when you think you have a childhood boogeyman and you have a real boogeyman that's even worse, you'd think it would override the other one. Because I was picturing, other villains like the especially with the black Batman, I was picturing the Darmok villain. If that creature had come back, I thought that was going to be, a sense of these are the best villains he ever fought, refighting him in his brain.
What do you think of the underlying message of the episode? Starts with his mom saying it, but then he says it later, is there's no better teacher than one's enemy, where it kind of comes to the realization that maybe Q is looking for help himself, because Picard even says, I always thought the Q were unknowable. I thought that was interesting, and I'm just wondering how that's going to play out, because it's an interesting idea that there's no better teacher than one's enemy, and it's absolutely true when you think about it.
Yeah, it's another example of this is the Picard we needed in season 1. He has a sense of urgency, as in story urgency. He's stronger, he's pushing forward, he's having his own ideas. So that entire speech, it's very classic Picard going forward, having still in the metaphorical. He can't just say it flat out like we would say it, because it's a story where you want more poetic language. But we all knew something was wrong with Q anyway, so it wasn't a reveal so much as okay, we're gonna go that route. But in theory, you could go to Q's office, his doctor's office, and you should be able to track him down with security cameras at least. If he's not continuumed, he's on the grid. He's on a phone with Sung, so he is here. Be a bit anticlimactic just to meet the man Q maybe in just an office, but could go anywhere. But I mean, that does make more sense, because Picard just fighting Borg when he can't physically fight isn't that interesting, whereas him going to Laris to talk to Q is a far more interesting storyline. So I assume we're gonna have those two tier stories. But it was
well, the Renee storyline was just kind of glossed over and seems closed
massively.
Now. Everything's fine. No sign of Q. Everything's quiet. She's good. All right, moving on.
It showed us the fact that the reason they gave her so little screen time and characters because she's not that important. Even though she was meant to be the thing. She's not the thing, which is weird. They just didn't want to commit to it as a real storyline, because she's not going to come back. is done, like, oh, I guess the future's saved, except now Borg are here, so not saved. Bad future, like a different bad future.
Well, I think the Soong thing is going to come back. Soong's going to help probably with the Borg.
I forgot Soong was even in it. I'll be honest.
I did too until just now when you were talking. I'm like, wait a minute. There's still like other things that can go on here.
Well, because he mentions it. Laris mentions it at the end, saying, "And the other guy, he's also somewhere." So there is a sense.
Yeah. Well, Picard asked where Soong is, and then yeah.
Because I assume Know Your Enemy, he was going to go see Soong. I mean, he will go see Soong because they built a set, and they clearly love reusing sets a la Pandemic, which is very clear from this week. But that's fine. They do it reasonably well. And then I think he will then be with Soong or some such. We may know where to find him. We'll just give him the phone number. And to make a Delusion episode feel so full is an impressive feat. So good job them. But sort of as a closing then, I'm surprised we've sort of gone over it. What do you think of James Cass himself as Picard's dad? All those scenes and the acting, etc.
Well, it was a surprise, obviously, but I really like the actor and kind of glad he's not a baddie. So I think I'm happy that he's making an appearance in Star Trek. I do like him in the uniform, I gotta say, but unfortunately, we probably won't see much of that. So.
Well, I actually met the guy. I did some prints with him for Trekyards a couple of years ago, and he actually knew the VFX company that did the model. So we had to have a VFX conversation because he's quite interested in sci-fi anyway. And he's obviously an English actor who's been in some English iconic things, and so it's weird to hear him put on like a very, I'm lowering my register so I sound more strong. But we know him as like this more high-pitched, kind of all over the place actor. So it's really weird to hear him like really like keep himself in those lower tones. But obviously he's English, so I just thought it was English. But I guess people are like, oh my god, 2 English actors. Which I guess is probably the first clue. English is English. Again, he's just James Catt. He's just Boltar to me. Good for the man. He's a Star Trek fan, I believe, anyway. First time in Star Trek gets to be Picard's dad, and in a full uniform the entire episode, and a canon feeling one. What a great. And I mean, he is like with Picard. Like these are some strong like actor scenes. I mean, talk about like going hardcore into Trek. Good for him. All the blessings on him in his life, man.
It was a great intro to this episode. Just seeing Picard and that pan in at the window. You're like, yes, we're on a starship, and then. Actually, like Picard's dialogue was awesome there, so it was a good back and forth.
And it'll be so different second watch. You mark my words, we'll both think differently for second watch because all the context will be different. And I mean that sun, that's now the new, Deveron purple anomaly seen through time, isn't it? Yeah. What did Picard see in his childhood that made him see a red supernova? Like that's now the new visual. That's the bad wolf. That's the Deveron anomaly. Dear me.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I was very, very pleased with this episode. All right, guys, I think that's about it. I think we touched on everything. There's probably a few things we'll see in second watch. So if you want to see our full breakdown of this episode, by all means, tune in later today for that. But please like the video, comment down below what you thought about it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and do all that fun stuff. Ring the bell. You know the routine. But please join us for the lives if you're able to.
Yes,
it means a lot. We
love that breakdown. We love that thought with you guys. We love the conversation and the super chat, so you guys can give to have the direct one-on-one communication or one-on-many, as the audience is pretty big. Put your thoughts in. We'll discuss it. And other ways to support the channel: Patreon, PayPal, join the channel on YouTube. All great ways. All the free ways are also all important. Or buy swag down below. There's links, there's sites, there's cool things. It all makes a big difference. Thanks in advance. And do check out our breakdowns because we really put effort into those. And the discussions that you guys were like, well, we don't want to make the graphics to compare uniforms, but Trekyards does it instead! That's what we're here for.
So until next time, guys, he is Commander Catton.
It's Catton Foley. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.